Have you ever watched a child push away every hand that tries to help them? 8-year-old Emma sat in the corner of $1 million mansion, refusing to eat, refusing to speak, refusing to let anyone close. For 6 months, she had been a ghost in her own home, haunting the empty halls with her silence. Contrary to what most people believe, it wasn't the expensive child psychologists or the renowned family therapists who reached her heart. It was a 52-year-old black cook named Sarah, armed with nothing but flour sugar and her grandmother's secret ingredient. I've researched hundreds of adoption stories, and this one reveals something profound about healing childhood trauma. By the end of this story, you'll understand how one woman's simple family tradition became the bridge that connected a broken child to the love she desperately needed. Emma went from a silent, withdrawn little girl who hadn't smiled in 6 months to calling Sarah Mama Sarah and laughing in the kitchen every morning. This story proves that sometimes the most powerful healing doesn't come from textbooks or degrees, it comes from the heart. The Morrison Mansion stood like a monument to success on the hills of Palo Alto, its glass walls reflecting the California sun. Inside, however, silence ruled. Richard Morrison, 45 years old and worth $300 million from his tech empire, paced his mahogany-paneled office, staring at adoption papers that had changed his life 3 months ago. His wife, Catherine, had died in a car accident 2 years earlier. The grief had nearly destroyed him until his lawyer suggested adoption might give his life new meaning. Emma, 8 years old and mixed race, had been in the foster system since age 4. When Richard first saw her photo, something in her eyes called to him a loneliness that matched his own. But 3 months later, Emma remained a stranger in his home. She sat by her bedroom window for hours staring at the perfectly manicured gardens below. Her room overflowed with expensive toys, a custom dollhouse worth $15,000, educational tablets, designer clothes hanging untouched in her walk-in closet. None of it mattered. Emma pushed food around her plate during their silent dinners, barely eating enough to survive. The experts had failed spectacularly. Dr. Patricia Williams, the city's most renowned child psychologist, at $500 per session, had conducted 8 meetings with Emma. She needs more time, Dr. Williams repeatedly insisted, while Emma destroyed every art project and refused to engage with the expensive play therapy equipment that littered the consultation room. Dr. James Chen, a trauma specialist recommended by Stanford Medical Center, diagnosed Emma with complex attachment disorder. His solution involved $200 art therapy sessions where Emma systematically destroyed every canvas marker and clay sculpture placed before her. "This is completely normal behavior for a child with her background," he assured Richard, while charging another $2,000 for specialized materials. Maria Santos, the bilingual family counselor, thought language barriers might be the issue. She soon discovered Emma spoke perfect English. She simply chose not to use it. After 6 sessions of Emma staring silently at the wall, Maria suggested residential treatment facilities. Richard had spent $15,000 in 3 months with zero progress. Each morning he watched Emma walk down the marble staircase like a ghost, her small hand barely touching the mahogany banister. She ate breakfast alone while he checked emails, the dining room echoing with the hollow sound of untouched silverware against fine china. The household staff whispered about the difficult child. 3 nannies had quit after 2-week periods, each claiming they felt helpless. "She doesn't connect with anyone," the last nanny, Mrs. Henderson, told Richard before collecting her final paycheck. "It's like she's not really there." Emma's social worker, Jennifer Martinez, visited monthly with growing concern. "Placement disruption happens in 30% of cases," she warned Richard during their last meeting. "If Emma can't adjust to family life, we might need to consider alternative arrangements." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. That's when Sarah Williams arrived. Sarah was 52 years old, originally from Atlanta, with 25 years of professional cooking experience. She had recently moved to California after her youngest child graduated college, seeking a fresh start in her golden years. A single mother who had raised 3 children while working double shifts, she now had 5 grandchildren who called her every Sunday. The agency recommended Sarah not specifically for Emma, but because Richard needed someone to manage his household meals. His previous cook had retired, and Richard survived on expensive delivered meals and restaurant takeout. Sarah came with impeccable references from prominent Atlanta families who praised her southern comfort food and warm personality. On Sarah's first morning, she arrived at 6 a.m. to begin breakfast preparations. As she moved through the commercial-grade kitchen, familiarizing herself with the sub-zero refrigerator and professional-grade gas range, she noticed small eyes watching from the staircase landing. Emma stood in her purple pajamas, one hand gripping the banister, observing this new person in her house. When Sarah looked up and offered a gentle wave, Emma immediately disappeared, her footsteps echoing as she ran back to her room. "Don't take it personally," Richard warned Sarah during their brief morning meeting. "She doesn't connect with anyone. The experts say it's normal behavior for children with attachment trauma." But Sarah had raised 3 children and helped care for 5 grandchildren. She understood something the experts seemed to miss. Sometimes the quietest children had the most to say. The house felt colder than any mansion should. Despite the luxury furniture and priceless art collection, it lacked the warmth that transforms a house into a home. No family photos decorated the refrigerator. No children's laughter echoed through the halls. No cooking aromas filled the air with comfort. Emma's daily routine never varied. She sat alone at the enormous dining table, pushing organic quinoa salads and grass-fed beef around her plate, while Richard worked on his laptop between bites. After breakfast, she retreated to her room or the library corner, always alone, always silent. The expensive meals Richard ordered truffle pasta from high-end restaurants, organic smoothie bowls from boutique cafes remained largely untouched. Emma had lost 8 pounds since arriving, and Dr. Williams suggested appetite stimulants might be necessary. But Sarah noticed something the experts had missed. Emma never ran away immediately when Sarah entered a room. She watched curious but cautious like a wild animal, deciding whether this new person posed a threat. During Sarah's first week, she established a quiet routine that respected Emma's boundaries while maintaining her presence. Each morning at 6:30, Sarah began breakfast preparations, humming softly old gospel songs her grandmother had taught her decades ago in their Atlanta kitchen. Emma appeared in the doorway every morning, never entering the kitchen, but no longer running away. She wore different pajamas each day, purple with unicorns, pink with butterflies, blue with superheroes, but her expression remained the same, cautious curiosity mixed with deep loneliness. Sarah never pressured interaction. Instead, she narrated her cooking in a gentle voice. "Morning, sweet girl. I'm making Mr. Richard's breakfast scrambled eggs with fresh chives from the garden." Emma's eyes followed Sarah's movements as she whisked eggs in a copper bowl, her grandmother's technique still perfect after all these years. "My grandmama taught me that cooking is just love you can taste," Sarah said one morning, not looking directly at Emma, but knowing she was listening. Every meal is a chance to show someone they matter. Emma's posture relaxed slightly when Sarah sang. The old spirituals seemed to unlock something in the child's guarded heart, not enough to speak, but enough to stay longer each morning. By the second week, Sarah decided to make cornbread for Richard's dinner. As she combined her grandmother's recipe, cornmeal buttermilk, a touch of honey, and the secret ingredient her family had used for generations, the aroma began filling the kitchen. Emma appeared closer than usual, standing just inside the kitchen doorway instead of hiding behind it. Her small nose lifted slightly, catching the scent that reminded her of something she couldn't quite remember. "You like that smell, baby?" Sarah asked gently, not turning around, but sensing Emma's increased interest. "This is my grandmama's recipe. She taught it to me when I was just about your age down in Atlanta." Emma nodded, the first response she had given to any adult in 6 months. Sarah's heart nearly leapt, but she maintained her calm demeanor. "Grandmama always said cornbread brings families together. She made it every Sunday after church, and all the neighbors would come by just to smell it baking." Emma remained in the kitchen for the entire baking process, 30 minutes of watching Sarah work with flour-dusted hands, listening to stories about Sunday dinners and grandmother's wisdom. When the timer rang and Sarah removed the golden loaves from the oven, Emma's eyes widened with wonder. "This will be ready for Mr. Richard's dinner," Sarah said, setting the cornbread on cooling racks. "Maybe you'd like to try a piece too." Emma didn't respond verbally, but she didn't disappear either. She stayed until Sarah began cleaning up, then quietly returned to her usual corner. That evening, Richard found Emma at the dinner table before he arrived, the first time she had come down early for any meal. When Sarah served the cornbread alongside his organic salmon, Emma's eyes fixed on the golden slices with obvious longing. "This smells incredible," Richard told Sarah, taking his first bite. "I haven't had homemade cornbread since I was a child." Emma watched her father's satisfied expression, then looked at her own untouched slice. When she thought no one was looking, she broke off a tiny piece and tasted it. Her eyes closed for a moment, as if processing not just the flavor, but the memory it triggered. The third week brought a breakthrough. Sarah started leaving small portions of everything she cooked in child-sized portions near Emma's usual spots: a piece of cornbread by the library corner, fresh fruit slices by the window seat, homemade cookies on the kitchen counter. "Just in case you get curious, sweet girl," Sarah would say, never making Emma feel pressured to eat, but always providing the option. Emma began taking tiny bites when she thought no one was watching. Sarah pretended not to notice, giving Emma the dignity of making her own choice. But Richard noticed immediately. For the first time since the adoption, Emma was eating real food consistently. Dr. Williams called it a breakthrough during their next session. "She's responding to the nurturing approach," the psychologist announced, as if she had somehow orchestrated this development. "We should document everything for our clinical study." Richard felt torn between celebration and concern. He wanted to hire Sarah as Emma's full-time caregiver to structure their entire household around this unexpected progress. But Sarah gently discouraged intensive intervention. "Let's just see where this goes naturally," she advised. "Sometimes the harder you grab onto something, the more likely it is to slip away." The fourth week arrived with autumn weather and a moment that changed everything. Emma, drawn by the familiar aroma of baking cornbread, ventured deeper into the kitchen than ever before. Sarah was teaching herself to use Richard's expensive stand mixer, struggling slightly with the unfamiliar controls. "Grandmama never had machines like this," Sarah muttered good-naturedly, trying to adjust the mixing speed. "Why do you call it Grandmama's recipe?" Emma asked quietly. Sarah's hands stilled on the mixer controls. After 6 months of silence, Emma had spoken, not just words, but a question that revealed genuine curiosity. Sarah turned slowly, kneeling to Emma's eye level. "Because she taught it to me with love," she said, her voice gentle but steady. "Every time I make it, I remember how she made me feel safe and wanted." Emma considered this seriously. "I don't remember my grandmama." "That's okay, baby," Sarah replied. "Sometimes we can borrow other people's grandmamas. Mine always said her love was big enough to share with anyone who needed it." Emma's eyes brightened with an emotion Richard hadn't seen since the adoption hope. "Could I?" Emma hesitated, then found her courage. "Could I help you make it?" Sarah's heart swelled, but she kept her voice calm. "I would love that more than anything in the world." For the first time in 6 months, a genuine smile crossed Emma's face. In the doorway, Richard Morrison wiped tears from his eyes, finally understanding that the love he couldn't give his daughter was being freely offered by someone whose heart was big enough for both of them. Fan 3. Crisis plus Breakthrough 802 Chinsak. Saturday morning arrived with golden California sunshine streaming through the kitchen windows. Emma appeared at 7 a.m. wearing her blue superhero pajamas, her hair neatly brushed, and eyes bright with anticipation. "Are you ready to learn Grandmama's recipe?" Sarah asked, tying a child-size apron around Emma's waist. Emma nodded eagerly, climbing onto the wooden step stool Sarah had positioned by the marble counter. Together they laid out ingredients: cornmeal in a ceramic bowl, fresh buttermilk farm eggs, and Sarah's secret bottle of vanilla extract that she'd brought from Atlanta. "First rule of cooking," Sarah said, guiding Emma's small hands, "is to measure everything with love. Grandmama used to say you can taste when someone cooks angry, but love makes everything sweeter." Emma concentrated intensely, her tongue sticking out slightly as she carefully measured cornmeal. "Like this, Mama Sarah," The words slipped out naturally, and both of them froze. Emma's eyes widened in panic as if she had revealed something forbidden. But Sarah's face bloomed with joy. "That's perfect, sweet girl," Sarah whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "And yes, you can call me Mama Sarah if that feels right to you." Emma's smile could have powered the entire mansion. They worked together for an hour, Emma asking endless questions about Sarah's family, her grandmother's kitchen in Atlanta, the difference between cornmeal and flour. When she accidentally spilled sugar on the counter, Emma immediately apologized. "What if I mess it up?" she worried. Sarah cupped Emma's flour-dusted face in her gentle hands. "Honey, love doesn't get messed up. It just gets stronger with practice. My grandmama burned her first batch of cornbread so badly they had to open every window in the house." Emma giggled, the first real laughter anyone had heard from her since the adoption. "Did your grandmama love you even when you were bad?" Emma asked the question loaded with deeper meaning. Sarah understood immediately. "Especially when I was bad. That's what real love does. It doesn't go away when things get difficult." But their joy was short-lived. Richard had been watching from the hallway, his heart full, but his mind troubled. After Emma went to bed, he called Dr. Williams. "Should I be concerned about inappropriate attachment?" he asked. "She's calling the cook Mama Sarah and seems more bonded to her than to me." Dr. Williams's response was immediate and firm. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. She's replacing her need for parental attachment with staff dependency. You need to establish clear boundaries immediately." The social worker agreed during an emergency consultation. Children in Emma's situation often form unhealthy attachments to caregiver figures, Jennifer Martinez explained. "It's a defense mechanism that prevents real family bonding." Richard felt torn between professional advice and Emma's obvious happiness. But the experts insisted Emma's progress was actually a regression in disguise. Reluctantly, Richard pulled Sarah aside Monday morning. "I need you to step back from the cooking lessons," he said, hating every word. "The professionals think Emma is forming an unhealthy dependency." Sarah's face fell, but she nodded professionally. "I understand, Mr. Richard. I'll maintain appropriate boundaries." The change was immediate and devastating. Emma came down for breakfast Tuesday morning, excited to continue their cooking lessons, only to find Sarah maintaining formal distance. No more humming, no more stories, no more shared baking time. "Can we make cornbread today, Mama Sarah?" Emma asked hopefully. "I'm sorry, sweetie," Sarah replied stiffly, following her new instructions. "I have other work to do today." Emma's face crumpled with confusion and hurt. She had opened her heart for the first time in years, only to have it closed again without explanation. Within 3 days, she regressed completely, refusing to eat, returning to her silent corner, pushing away anyone who tried to approach. But now, for the first time, Emma cried real heartbroken tears that she had been holding back for months. "Why won't Mama Sarah cook with me anymore?" she sobbed to Richard. "Did I do something wrong? Does she not love me anymore?" Richard watched his daughter's pain and experienced a revelation that no expert could provide. Emma wasn't forming an unhealthy attachment. She was learning to love and trust for the first time in her young life. The professionals were treating her natural healing as a pathology. "What if this isn't unhealthy?" Richard asked himself, watching Emma cry herself to sleep. "What if this is exactly what she needs?" Thursday morning, Richard made a decision that would change all their lives. He called Dr. Williams and fired her. He told the social worker that Emma was thriving, not regressing. And he found Sarah in the kitchen, preparing his breakfast, with tears in her eyes. "Hey, Sarah," he said, his voice firm with newfound conviction. "I want you to teach Emma everything, cooking, baking, whatever she wants to learn. The experts were wrong. You're not creating dependency, you're creating family." Sarah's smile lit up the entire kitchen. "Yes, sir, Mr. Richard. I'll teach her everything my grandmama taught me." That afternoon, Emma's laughter echoed through the mansion for the first time since Sarah's forced withdrawal. In the kitchen, covered in flour and surrounded by the aroma of baking cornbread, Emma hugged Sarah tightly. "I thought you didn't love me anymore," Emma whispered. "Sweet girl," Sarah replied, holding her close. "Love like ours doesn't just disappear. Sometimes it just has to wait for the right moment to shine again. 3 months later, the Morrison mansion had transformed into something unrecognizable, a real home filled with warmth, laughter, and the constant aroma of Sarah's cooking. Every morning, Emma raced down the marble staircase, her footsteps no longer echoing with loneliness, but thundering with excitement. "Good morning, Mama Sarah. Can we make Grandmama's cornbread today?" became her daily greeting, delivered with arms outstretched for their morning hug. Richard had officially expanded Sarah's role from cook to family coordinator, though her most important job couldn't be captured in any employment contract. She was Emma's bridge to healing the grandmother figure who taught love through flour and sugar. Emma learned more than recipes in that kitchen. She discovered family stories from Sarah's Atlanta childhood, heard about cousins and church picnics, and Sunday dinners where everyone was welcome. Sarah's children visited monthly automatically, including Emma as their newest sister. Her grandchildren called Emma their California cousin. "This is how we show love in our family," Sarah taught Emma one Sunday afternoon as they prepared dinner together. "We feed people. When someone sits at our table, they become part of our heart." Emma absorbed every lesson, both culinary and emotional. She started cooking simple meals for Richard, presenting them with proud announcements: "I made this with love, Daddy, just like Mama Sarah taught me." The transformation extended beyond the kitchen. Emma gained 12 pounds, made friends at school, and began telling her teachers about Mama Sarah's grandmama's recipes. Her social worker officially closed the case, noting Emma's remarkable adjustment and family bonding. Richard reduced his work hours to join their cooking lessons, learning to knead dough and measure love alongside his daughter. Sunday dinners became sacred family time with Emma, insisting on setting the table with their finest china, not because they were trying to impress anyone, but because family meals deserved their best effort. The mansion walls now displayed Emma's artwork and family photos that captured their journey from strangers to family. The kitchen, once sterile and professional, became the heart of their home, where Emma's laughter mixed with Sarah's gospel songs and Richard's newfound contentment. If Emma's story touched your heart and you'd like to hear more inspiring stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Every week I share stories about how simple acts of love can heal the deepest wounds. Which moment resonated with you most? When Emma first spoke to Sarah, or when she called her Mama Sarah? Share in the comments below. Sometimes the most powerful healing doesn't come from expensive therapy. It comes from someone who cooks with love and serves it with a grandmother's wisdom.